Alright, today we are going to be jumping back into the Bitcoin price action, discussing some things I found interesting on the charts, as well as covering the S&P and dollar today towards the end of the video. Starting off here in trading light, I wanted to look at that point of resistance we had talked about in the last video. I had said this golden pocket up here where the single print and sweep level was a point of resistance that we needed to be watching out for. Price did in fact reject off this level, which could have been expected right at this sell wall I had also talked about. But just because we rejected does not mean that it is over for Bitcoin. We are still holding these lows very well. This was just a simple sweep to the upside before sweep to the downside rotation type of play, right? Break up to the upside on the range before breaking to the downside, deviating back within the range, and now sitting back within the range. We kind of have a 50-50 on where price is going to go because we no longer have immediate upside liquidity that needs to get grabbed, whereas we do have immediate downside liquidity that could get grabbed at this sweep level here, but we don't really have anything to the downside after that. So it wouldn't make sense for us to just completely roll over, squeeze them down to, below $63,000 unless price was truly bearish and it was like the end of the bull market. And in my opinion, I just don't think we're quite at that time yet. I think we're still in just a trading range where traders are going to control the market, and is why I think price is going to hunt on a liquidity basis. So because we still have more of that stuff to the upside, like we were talking about in my last video, with all of these poor highs, all of these sweep levels within here, I still think overall we're either going to hunt up from here, and this was just a quick grab of these lows once we found resistance at the single prints, small rotation within here before continuing on higher, or we are going to grab one more time to the lows before, going on and hunting on up for those highs at $75,000. If we did get that secondary grab within here, we do see on our RSI we are forming a nice trend of a 4-hour bullish divergence. So if we were to have this pullback within here, that could align with this trend very nicely, and this is something we'll want to be watching for if we do in fact come down here lower, is if we are going to hold the trend of higher lows here on the RSI, which could signal a nice long entry here at the lows. But you might notice we already have a bull div on the 4-hour time frame. You can see here very locally within this swing we had to the upside, when we came back down and swept the lows, we made higher lows on the RSI, lower lows on price. That's a nice 4-hour bullish divergence, and this certainly could be it. We could go ahead and head on up from here. This low down here is still very good in my opinion. I'm still holding my long, and as long as we can squeeze on up here and start flipping our value area low back into support of this range, I believe that will tell us who is on the right side of the market when it comes to our order flow. And what do I mean by that? Well, if we go over here to Coin Inc over here, this is something I posted in the Discord. Bullish order flow on Binance, bearish order flow on Bybit. Will be noteworthy to see who can control the market here. So you can see I posted two images in here. The first one we're looking at is Binance. You can see as price is downtrending from that high at the single prints, these are 5-minute candles by the way, we also see open interest decreasing, which shows that this is just from longs closing, which is not bullish continuation. And this is also represented by when we get to the lows down here, you see price is making lower lows, whereas CVD is making higher lows, showing that sellers are being exhausted. After we make this final low, you see a reversal in open interest and longs continuing to open up with trend here, showing that buyers are in control of the market. This is bullish continuation, and why, if we can continue to make higher lows, that it shows Binance is on the right side of the market, and we will likely continue on up until we do squeeze those shorts open by Bybit. If we go over here and look at Bybit's chart here, you can see during this downtrend within here, as price is coming down, open interest was going up, CVD going down. This indicates that they were opening shorts throughout the downtrend, and they were in control of the market from that high at the single prints. When we come down and make these lower lows, CVD is also making lower lows, showing that there is no bullish divergence within here. This indicates they are not exhausted and still opening shorts at the lows. And when price does reverse and start trending up here, they do not open longs. These are just shorts closing here on Bybit. So this will be something to watch. If we look at Bybit here, we want to see them start opening up long positions as price rises here to create even more bullish continuation to the upside, and we are starting to see that. We do see in these last couple of 5-minute candles, they are opening up long positions, and trend has held higher lows. So as long as trend can hold higher lows, it doesn't start breaking down, this will show that Binance was probably on the right side of the market here at the lows, and that continuation to the upside is more likely. But again, it's pretty 50-50. We don't have a magic ball to tell us exactly what price is going to do here. We'll just have to watch the order flow and kind of decipher what is more probable based on price action. Looking at the levels chart, you can see price did get back above our daily point of control, and we are flipping that into support currently. So let's see if this POC can hold, and we can flip the weekly point of control into support as well and start filling into these imbalances, this big fair value gap above us, and that will be the real test. Are we going to swing fail this fair value gap and get back under the point of control, or are we going to teleport through this low volume area and start flipping the value area highs back into support for that continuation higher? Now let's talk about the S&P, because we have seen this thing just continue up, forming this last angle of attack, making new highs day after day until this previous candle where we do see a massive flush here on the S&P, getting us back with inside these vectors to the downside, sweeping all of these lows within here, which is not a bad sign to see. Pullbacks like this are no problem, especially when you do have a lot of poor lows. Sweeping this stuff and grabbing those late longers before continuing to the upside is not a bad sign to see, although I will say, since we do have a parabola forming here, we're at the top side of the parabola. When you do get big red candles like this with big wicks to the top side, you always got to think, is this the end of the parabola, and is it possible we completely roll over here and that is the final top for the S&P? And it's always possible, so we got to be watching this stuff closely. But just based on our lines of attack, you can see our previous trends have lasted a lot longer, and they have made more percentages on price here. If we just take our two previous lines of attack, angles of attack throughout this parabola, while they might not have lasted the exact same amount of time, they pretty much went up the exact same amount of percents here. So if we were to assume this last angle of attack is going to be the steepest, the fastest, but still accrue the same amount of percentages to the upside, we would essentially assume it goes about this high at, let's just say, that like 76-degree angle of attack, which would be from this swing low to this swing high as the trend. And we can see our top likely comes around at the end of July, which would be the FOMC meeting, interesting enough. And it is still much higher up on price, and I do expect us to get at least near there, right? We don't have to go all the way up there, but just on a structural level, it does make sense for us to come up here higher on the S&P before that blow off top does finally play out. It's even possible this is bigger than our previous trends, because historically when you do create blow off tops, that last angle of attack is violent enough to actually swing you very high up on price, and we could see something like that for the S&P actually playing out before we do enter the recession later on this year that all of our recessionary indicators are pointing towards. But something we got to be watching out for is the dollar, as we do see the dollar looking extremely bullish right here, coming up with haste on this daily candle. After backtesting the range, flipping this into support, you can see this is a macro range that we held as support and resistance throughout 2023. So this could be showing us that the trend is going to continue here on the dollar, and since Bitcoin is inversely correlated with the dollar, this could be a bad sign for Bitcoin. But the trend on this thing is still lower highs. If we were to take, just a simple trend line here, we can see this is where we would expect to find that resistance if we do go ahead and come up here. And this is where we could either roll back over to test this once more before the true rally starts, and this is where you do have the final blow off top in your risk on assets, S&P, all of that good stuff, or what we all hope to happen, which is that we go ahead and actually flip this back into resistance to hunt down to the range lows at around 100 here on the dollar before, that's where your top comes in. And I'm starting to think this probably will hold on the macro, because we just are getting later into the cycle, and this has backtested as such good support within here. But I do fully expect to find resistance once more around this level, and I would expect it to sweep these lows back in here when we do make that final low within here. We could make a pretty significant deviation to the downside when this low does come in, and this should mark the top for all of our assets and Bitcoin and that sort of thing. I do expect at least one more rally to the upside, whether it be to $100,000 or just an upthrust after distribution for Bitcoin. This right here is when your final top should come in, and I wouldn't be too worried about the dollar coming up here, as long as we do not start flipping this into support and just go parabolic on the dollar. I think this would still give us plenty of time for a rally into when the Fed is probably cutting rates in September. But if you have any questions about anything I talked about, or just want to join the community for this channel, link to my Discord is in the description down below. And don't forget, also link down there, I am running an event right now with BingX for some awesome futures rewards. So if you are interested in any of that, make sure to go sign up using my link, and then you will be registered to enter. And with all of that said, thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you all in the next video.